Well, hello, our fellow friends, our fellow neighbors, and our fellow shining stars. Our next trolley stop is here, and our next trolley stop is now. Welcome back to another all new episode of PR from the Heart's Children's Book Spotlight Series. To be precise, we have reached episode number 221. That's right, little Forrest. That is the 221st trolley stop here at the Children's Book Spotlight Series here at PR from the Heart, as we are not only fully immersed in our back to school season, but we are officially kicking off the 6-year anniversary celebration of the Children's Book Spotlight Series. My name is John Masiulionis, the manager of PR from the Heart and the host of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, joined each and every trolley stop with my faithful furry friend and forever companion, little Forrest. You heard him chirping in already. He's excited beyond belief, and he reminds me each and every trolley stop, John, I am not only your faithful fellow friend and forever companion, but also your fellow co-host on the Children's Book Spotlight Series. So that's right, little Forrest. This is going to be a very special trolley stop. Right off the bat, we want to thank all of you for your continued support of the Children's Book Spotlight Series as we are approaching the countdown of 20,000 subscribers via our official YouTube channel. So we're super excited about that, among many other things. And I'm very excited about this particular trolley stop because as kids across the country are now fully back to school or are heading back to school, we realize, especially as parents and caregivers and custodians of our little ones, that life moves fast. And it's interesting because every once in a while, I like to share some beautiful quotes here on the Children's Book Spotlight, because we've thoroughly enjoyed doing that since day one of the program. And if we go back to the beloved classic film of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, 1986, it was, one too many, several decades ago. But Ferris Bueller said, life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it. And if you are a parent, if you are a caregiver, if you are a custodian of a little one, you know what that means. I just happened to turn 43 a few weeks ago as well, too. It's important to celebrate the wins, little wins, the big victories, to take the time to nurture yourself along the way, to make some amazing friends as well, too. And I know one of the things that we always love here at the Children's Book Spotlight Series is when we take the time to connect with parents, educators, grandparents, children across the country where our travels take us. And they ask us, is there a children's book that can encompass everything that you have just said, John? And yes, the answer to this particular musing from Ferris Bueller, there is a children's book that is available that really helps us to encapsulate all of those beautiful messages, especially the importance of living your life to the fullest. That's going to be the resonating theme that you're going to be hearing on episode number 221 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series. We encourage all of you, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course, our fellow shining stars, to head on over to the official website of our featured guest here on the Children's Book Spotlight Series, which we have included in the description below. You can also head on over to Amazon.com if that is your preferred online vehicle of your choosing, and purchase your copy of Dear Mr. G. It is now available, courtesy of our friends and neighbors at Union Square Books. They did a wonderful job putting this together. Beautiful artwork by Gracie Zhang. And over the course of these past several trolley stops, it's also been a good feeling, in the words of our favorite neighbor, Mr. Rogers, because we have had the opportunity to reconnect with several of our new neighbors that we had the opportunity to meet 2 months ago at the ALA Annual Exhibition and Conference here in where we reside, San Diego, California. So the trolley doesn't have to travel very far. We head on over from San Diego, where we reside, all the way to the beautiful Bay Area, San Francisco, California, joining us to kick off our 6-year anniversary celebration, joining us as our featured guest here on episode number 221 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, children's author Christine Evans. Christine, we appreciate you joining us here at the program. Little Forrest, I know, was super excited. He was not with me at ALA. He probably would have had too much sensory overload, so he stayed here. We were at the convention center, but it's great to be able to connect in this fashion. And thank you for helping us kick off the 6-year anniversary celebration of the program.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here today.
This is going to be a fun trolley stop. So we always like to do a little bit of housekeeping before we commence. If the message of living your life to the fullest, if it's resonating with you, if you say, you know what, this message and Dear Mr. G, they're both coming into my life in perfect and divine timing right now. One of the many ways that you can pledge your support for Christine, in addition to us here at the Children's Book Spotlight series, as we briefly alluded to this earlier on, you can subscribe to PR from the Heart's official YouTube channel and share this very special trolley stop that you are currently enjoying. That is episode number 221 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. And we'll also be mentioning this several times during the course of the program. One of the many ways that you can pledge your support for Christine is by leaving a 5-star review on Amazon for Dear Mr. G that lets her know that she's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and for those who love great children's books. So we talk about living life to the fullest, Christine, and we always love to be able to start off every Children's Book Spotlight series episode really connecting to an author's origin story. And even though we had just a few brief moments at ALA and Sandy, we're having a little bit more of an expanded conversation, of course, today. I love your accent, so I can, it sounds like, it seems like, and it feels like that's not a Bay Area accent. So from the opportunity that I've had to do research and preparing for this particular trolley stop, you've had a fascinating journey. For those who are learning about your story for the first time, because there's always 2 stories on a Children's Book Spotlight series episode. There's the story that we're sharing of the children's book that we're sharing, and then there's the author's journey, the author's origin story. Could you share with us where it all began for you, when you knew that a large purpose was placed in your heart to be able to better the lives of children and truly step into the world of children's literature and share all of your creative gifts with the world? When did that happen, and how did all that take form and shape?
Yeah, so I have always loved books, as many of your audience, I'm sure they do as well. I've loved books my entire life. I remember I lived in a tiny village in England. That's where my accent is from, in the east of England. And I lived in a small village. It didn't have its own library. And so the mobile library would come to our village. And so I have very vivid memories of going to that tiny mobile library on wheels to go and pick out books. So books were a massive part of my childhood, but I never knew that I could be an author at that point. I didn't know authors was something, being an author, I didn't know that was something I could be. Kids nowadays are very lucky. They get to meet authors, they get to connect with authors like we are now, or in schools and at bookstores. But when I was growing up, I never met a real author. I thought they were mythical people. I had no idea what an author was, and that it was something that I could do. And so I always loved to write, and I had eventually, as I grew up, I got a job in a tech company, and I was writing a lot, but it was like for online blogs and websites. It wasn't creative in the way that wasn't telling stories the way I do now. And then we moved out to California, nearly 13 years ago now, and I had children, and I was reading picture books to my kids. And as again, many of your listeners know, picture books are so special because you have the combination of the words and the pictures to tell a story. In Dear Mr. G, Gracie has added lots of details into the illustrations that you won't see in my words. I don't tell her what to draw. She adds all those special details in. And that's why I love picture books, is that kind of combination of the two, the story from the writer and the story from the illustrator coming together to tell a story that then the reader gets to interpret in their own way. And so it was reading these picture books to my own children that really kind of made me fall in love with picture books and want to learn how to do it myself.
I'm really glad that you had the opportunity to trust your guidance, to follow your intuition, because you easily could have just said, okay, well, these authors are mythical beings, right? And it's eventually you came to a point that you said, I want to be one of those mythical beings, right? And again, here we are, and we're going to be talking about Dear Mr. G momentarily. During one's journey, there's always ebbs and flows. There's polarity, there's the contrast. So You know, it would be nice if life would be rainbows and gumdrops, but life is not that way. And life is its way of challenging us to remind us that we have perseverance and courage. Could you share with us specifically, because again, through life, we experience challenges, difficulties, obstacles, problems, stressors, troubles, worries, you name it, we experience them. What were some of the specific challenges and difficulties of note that you experienced along your path, whether it be through your author journey, specifically to the creation of Dear Mr. G, which we'll be talking about again momentarily, and what were some of the things that helped you to get through to the other side of those challenges and difficulties?
Yeah, well, whenever I visit schools, which is obviously towards the end of this journey where I am now, I always say to kids that you have to keep going. If there's something you want to really do, then you have to keep going. And that's definitely true of publishing. When I started writing, I didn't have any idea what I was doing, how to write a picture book. So I took courses. I built a community, which I found really, really super important, was finding other writers to connect with and build a community, both online and in person locally in the Bay Area. There's amazing writers locally. And so I started meeting people, talking, joining groups and learning more and more about how to write picture books. So eventually you get to the point of having a picture book, you think, this is the best thing ever. I am going to send this out and I'm going to get a book deal and it's going to be brilliant. And then you send it out and you get lots of rejections. And you're like, oh, maybe it wasn't quite as good as I thought. And so the very first manuscript I sent out, I can't even remember which one it was. It might have actually been Evelyn, which is behind me. Evelyn, the Adventures Entomologist was my first book. And I was sending that one out to agents at the very beginning. So I'm sure your listeners have heard stories from authors before, but an agent is somebody that helps an author to sell their books and various aspects of their career. And so I was submitting to agents initially. And so I was sending that out to agents and I was getting kind rejections and, some rejections very fast. I think the fastest response I got was like something like 10 minutes. I was like, guess it was really that bad. It just, these things start making you think, why am I doing this? Is this worth it? It can be hard to keep getting people saying, no, it's not right for me. Nothing was mean. They were all lovely rejections. It was all like, this isn't right for me, or I have a client who already writes something like this, those kind of rejections. So again, that's where the community comes in. Having people to talk to that are going through the same thing as you really helps. So I revised my story. I always tell the story at school visits that Evelyn, I revised that 50 times. That's 50 times before it's sold. And so I revised it. I worked with fellow writers. I got professional critiques. And I just kept going because I really did feel this is what I wanted to do. And eventually I did sell Evelyn because that's how it got made. It was all worth it. I kept going and I managed to sell that book and subsequent books too.
And I'm glad that you didn't give up because, one of the things that we always love authenticity and transparency here on the Children's Book Spotlight series. You can tell from ALA, there was a massive amount of people that were there. Every single kind of person that you can imagine, parents and educators and grandparents and bookstore owners and booksellers, and of course, librarians. And when I made the decision, because I was there, this was more of like, it was personal for me to be there because it's like, oh, it's actually in my backyard. I didn't have any of my clients there, didn't have a booth, nothing along the lines of that. And I asked myself, I says, who do I want to connect with? And of course, you get this huge schedule, all of these panel discussions and all of these authors. And when I came across her book, which we're going to be diving into the pages of momentarily, it truly stood out. Even before I actually read it from cover to cover. And so this is why I'm so glad that you didn't give up, so glad that you didn't throw in the towel, because again, one of the things we're talking about, living your life to the fullest, right? If you give up and you throw in the towel, then you may not necessarily get to the rainbows and gumdrops chapter of your life, so to speak, as well. We are just beginning our time with our featured guest here on the Children's Book Spotlight series to kick off the 6-year anniversary celebration of the program. Joining us from the Bay Area, children's author Christine Evans. We are almost ready to crack the cover and dive into the pages of her new children's book, Dear Mr. G, courtesy of our friends and neighbors at Union Square Kids. We encourage again all of you, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course, our fellow shining stars, to head on over to Christine's official website, which we've included in the description below. You can also head on over to Amazon.com. That's one of the many ways you can pledge your support for Christine is by heading over to Amazon, leaving a 5-star review that lets her know that she's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and for those who love great children's books. You can also head on over to your favorite local library, your favorite children's or independent bookstore. If they do not stock their copies of Dear Mr. G, as we like to say here at the Children's Book Spotlight Series, make that kind recommendation. This is our little tip of the cap emoji, so to speak. Let them know that you heard about it right here on the kickoff of the 6-year anniversary celebration of the Children's Book Spotlight Series. And for all educators, teachers, principals, librarians, superintendents, as you are making your wise decisions, to ask yourself, who do I bring in to share their work with my students as part of the 2024-2025 school year? Head on over to Christine's official website. We've included it in the description below. A very sound and wise decision that you can make is by contacting Christine, because this beautiful children's book will really touch the hearts of your students. And it really covers so many different gambits in a very positive way. And this is what, being in the industry for 10 years now, just celebrating our 10-year anniversary, just a little over a month ago now, I've come into contact with many children's authors, many children's books, and ones that cover a variety of topics and do it from a very heartfelt place. Truly, I feel at least, are the books that stand out the most. And one of the things that I really love about Dear Mr. G as well, too, and one of the things we never like to give away the whole kit and caboodle on the Children's Book Spotlight Series. And every once in a while, we get some feedback, right, about the phrase kit and caboodle. That means we don't like to give away the whole thing, right? Because we want to encourage all of you to be able to check out Christine's work, follow her on social media, purchase your copies of Dear Mr. G. But one of the really cool things that I really love about the story, it is this simple yet loving exchange between a little boy named Jackson and an elder, a very wise, compassionate elder named Mr. G. And it's this letter exchange. So again, most children's books, it's not like you see one letter next and one letter in the next. So one of the reasons why I knew that this book stands out, and it very much does amongst the pack of all of the crowded kidlit marketplace, is the fact that it stands out. Like, I've never seen a children's book that has this letter exchange between two people. And it really is a timeless story as well, too, because, right now we're wrapping the summer, right? And technically for some people, from when this episode premieres, which is the day after Labor Day, for most people, once Labor Day hits, it's like, poof, summer's gone. Now we're heading into the fall. So the seasons are changing, and the seasons do change during Dear Mr. G. Could you share with us, without giving away the whole kit and caboodle, of what children and parents and families and educators, and as we like to say here in the program, those who love great children's books, will be able to learn and enjoy when they connect with this beautiful exchange between Jackson and Mr. G, and really what they're going to be taking away from the story, not only in the moment when they read it, but what they'll be able to take away for the rest of their lives to help them live life to the fullest.
I think Dear Mr. G is about so many things, but I really want it to be about those small moments in life. Like I'm not going to give away the whole kit and caboodle, but there's those small moments like birthday parties, and they both celebrate a birthday in this book. There's making scones to give to that Jackson gives to his neighbor, Mr. G, and there's playing soccer. So there's always little tiny moments that kind of are brought out in the story. With this exchange of letters, and so just remembering those smaller moments. And Gracie really helps with that too, because there's a couple of wordless spreads in the book where she comes to her work. It's focused on his most important part of the book is her art, in my opinion. And she shows little moments of like getting on the school bus, doing homework, playing soccer, meeting a new friend, and she brings all those moments to life too through her art. So there's lots of those small moments. So I feel like that's a really important part of the book, and I'm glad you highlighted that. That is not there's so much more to it than just, oh, it's just Mr. G and Jackson exchanging letters. It's like about their lives and how they intertwine with each other.
And this is something, again, that you can, one of the things that I also love about children's books is when you can literally feel on a deep, visceral, emotional level, the emotions that you can feel when reading the book. So one of my favorite, again, we're not giving away the whole kit and caboodle, but we are going to share a brief little passage here. So one of the exchanges from little Jackson says, "Dear Mr. Graham, happy birthday. I hope you like this card. My birthday is next week and I'm going to be 7. How old are you?" I'm guessing pretty old. Jackson. Again, sounds like something just, very quaint, very, very curious, very childlike, very innocent. And then Mr. G replies, "Dear Jackson, happy birthday to you too. I remember when I was 7, it was the year we got our first television. It was black and white and there were only a few channels." So again, just this simple dialogue, like, in life, to bring joy to others, we don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? And just again, when I was reading just this particular passage, I'm like, man, like I could remember when I was 7. That would have been 1988, right? And just like what happened in 1988. So again, it brings up more of those internal connections. Where were we when we were 7 years old? And just being able to see this bond being forged and formed. And that's something I feel that, both you and I are old enough and young enough to know what life was like before the internet, before cell phones, before social media, before digital devices and doodads. This is something I really want to speak to the importance of because, something like writing a letter to someone, it really does mean a lot. And we live in this society, and I mean, it's even the case in the world of children's literature, right? Like technically when a book is written, it comes out in the future, anywhere from maybe a year to 3 years in the future, and then you're already on to the next thing. But remember what Ferris Bueller said, which we go back again to the wise words of the illustrious Ferris Bueller, and you got to take the time to enjoy each moment. Whether you have children, whether you don't have children, let's really hit on that if you could. And specifically to the thread of how does Dear Mr. G help us to remember the importance of living life to the fullest? And just as a follow-up question to that, and this may sound idiotic, but I think we all need these reminders, even if they sound like idiotic questions. Why is it so important to live life to the fullest and be in the moment?
Yeah, I think with Dear Mr. G, and this isn't a spoiler, I don't think, because it does say in the jacket, I think, that we kind of, yeah, so I'll read a bit from the jacket actually. Jackson writes letters highlighting the everyday moments, and Mr. G responds until the very end of his life, encouraging Jackson to live each day to the fullest. And so that was kind of the premise of the whole book, that by writing this letter and making this intergenerational connection with Mr. G, he's kind of learning about making each moment count and like living life to the fullest. So I think that's an important part of the book. And it's one that I hadn't thought about that much until we started talking. So I'm learning more about my book by speaking with you. I think when I set out to write the book, I was like, I'm going to write a book with letters in it. And then it built from there. So these themes that you're bringing out makes me think too. So I'm like, oh yeah, it is about that too. So that's really cool. Thank you. And
Welcome.
what's the second part of your question again? Sorry.
So specifically when it comes to the importance of living life to the fullest, we as human beings, we can tend to worry what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen 5 years from now, are the kids going to be okay? Am I going to have enough money? We can just worry about these things. And one of the things, like, little Forrest right now, he's just super chill right now, but he's not worried about 5 years from now. He's not, I mean, if anything, maybe it's what's for dinner, right? And so the reminder of living life to the fullest, no matter where we are on our path, if we're a parent, if we're an educator, if we're just, a single person waiting for our significant other to come into the equation, if we're about to get married, why is it important now more than ever to really live life to the fullest?
Yeah, why is it important to live life to the fullest? Oh, it's a good question. For me as a parent, it's because my kids are watching me. Like, I'm teaching my kids, and I get a lot of enjoyment from watching new experiences through their eyes. As a family, we went to Maui the week after ALA. In fact, we went off to Maui, and just experiencing things. Even though I'd been to a luau before, like seeing that through my kids' eyes and seeing their eyes light up, going snorkeling and seeing turtles. You know, all those kind of amazing experiences that are important to me, but I hope are also kind of formative experiences for the kids as well. Like my oldest, she's 12 and she's been saying for a couple of years now she wants to be a marine biologist. And when she has that experience in Maui of seeing like the turtles swing in the ocean, then that helps form that even more. So she's even more determined now that she wants to be a marine biologist. Who knows where she'll end up, but it was just those kind of living life to the fullest and having new experiences, no matter what they are. If it's having an ice cream, if it's going to the park, like having those experiences help form the future of your life. So yeah, I hope that by doing that with my kids, that's helping influence them for the future.
That is a beautiful share, and especially life is not guaranteed. Life is very, very fleeting. Life is very precious, and there's many people that will I just actually had a conversation with someone very dear to me yesterday, and she had mentioned that one of her dear friend's fathers is 97 years old. And I said, what? And he's got all of his faculties, and he takes naps every day. Good for him, right? But then you see there's children that pass away at a very short age. So, we're not guaranteed tomorrow. So to
Yeah.
take the time to, breathe that fresh air when you go outside, or take the time to write the letter to someone. And one of the things that also makes life more meaningful, that I also love, that's woven in beautifully into Dear Mr. G, is the connection that we have with our elders. Now, it's very easy to say, for example, if there is someone who's an elder that lives next door to us, and they may come across as the dude, get off my lawn kind of guy, right? Very, grumpy and that kind of thing, right? But we do come into contact with elders who are very wise, who have a lot of experience, who have a lot of love and wisdom to be able to share with us. Could you speak to that thread? Because it's just very easy to say, well, it's just the old person that's down the street. And there's so much that we can learn, but this also, it reminds us to remain humble, because we don't know everything. Being in the PR publicity world for 10 years, I still learn every day. I try to remain close to the water, as the expression goes, just very grateful and grounded and humble, because I learn every day, and the universe can have a very easy way of trying to humble us if we don't remain humble, so to speak. So, could you speak to the thread of the importance of connecting with our elders and learning from our elders, and what it is that they have to teach us, especially now in this particular point in time?
Yeah, I think as a kid growing up, I was very connected to like my elders. Like we had older neighbors on either side of us growing up. One of them had a garden, very like Mr. G's, in fact. And the other one was on the other side, they used to babysit for us. They were um just such important people in our lives. And then obviously my own grandparents too. My own granddad, he had an allotment, which I don't know if that is that term used here. It's like a community garden, I guess, like, but your own like patch. I don't know what the right, I've lived here 12 years and I still forget, like, wait, is that a British term or is that an American term? So he had his own garden, he would grow his vegetables. So gardening was kind of an important thing. So a lot of these things I now realize are why they ended up in my book, because they were all kind of in my brain and they all came to the front when I wrote the book. But also I think about, I don't know if you've seen like the experiments where they've had, well, like experiments, but the programs where they have young kids like a daycare, or we would like preschool, go into like a retirement home or a care facility to interact with older people, and the joy it brings both communities, how important that is. So I thought about those kind of things. So I think it's really important to kind of interact with people from all ages. Like I get a lot of joy from interacting with kids, but also like my older neighbors too. And there's so much to learn. I think I don't know how easy it is for people to connect nowadays. Like you talked about social media and internet and phones. I think people maybe don't necessarily go out and talk to their neighbors as much as maybe they would have done once upon a time. So I think encouraging that in a safe way, like, if you have an older neighbor, can you and your kids make them scones and take them over? Like, can you encourage your kids to write letters to grandparents that live far away? I mean, obviously, I'm from England, so my kids' grandparents are 6,000 miles away. So encouraging those connections, keeping them alive, is really important too. So yeah, having conversations, but as a parent, we need to also demonstrate that and find ways of making those connections. I'm a Girl Scout troop leader. And one thing we did one holiday was to write cards to people who receive the Meals on Wheels service. So even like service projects like that, you can find in your communities that you can do. I think on my website, I've got an educator guide, which has some links to those kind of resources that schools and other community groups can use. But very much, yeah, locally, we do the Meals on Wheels service, which is really great.
The word connection, it's interesting. We talk about living life to the fullest, but the other parallel theme, the loving bookend to living life to the fullest is connection. Because when we take the time to begin, first off, connecting with ourselves, then we can have greater connections with other people. And that I've seen this. I celebrate my grandmother each and every day. She was very much and still is my guardian angel. She transitioned 11 years ago. And I still remember growing up, the joy that I had when I would go over to her house. And, again, as a child in the 80s, when you saw sour cream and onion Pringles in the cupboards, it was like, whoa, this is absolutely fantastic. I've had the opportunities to go to senior citizen facilities, nursing homes, and there are some people that don't have anyone. They don't have family, and just when someone comes in and brings a nice warm meal, some hot soup, it really helps to extend their lives, because without connection, there's no point in living. It's almost like a flower withering. If it doesn't get the love and the care that it deserves, it eventually dies. We're beginning to wind down our time with our featured guest here on episode number 221 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, children's author Christine Evans. We wholeheartedly encourage you to head on over to her official website, pinwheelsandstories.com. You can also head on over to Amazon.com if that is your preferred online vehicle of your choosing. And you can leave a 5-star review after purchasing and enjoying Dear Mr. G. It is now available, again, courtesy of our friends and neighbors at Union Square Kids. One of the many ways you can pledge your support for Christine is to let her know that she's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and those who love great children's books. That's encompassed by leaving a 5-star review on Amazon. Of course, if you head on over to your favorite local library, your favorite children's or independent bookstore, they are the pillars of our communities, we like to say here on the Children's Book Spotlight Series. And they do not stock their copies of Dear Mr. G. Again, make that kind recommendation. If you want to do the tip of the cap emoji, you're welcome to do that. They might look at you like you have a fourth eye, so to speak, but that's okay. Let them know that you heard about Dear Mr. G right here on the Children's Book Spotlight Series. And again, for all educators across the country and around the world, not just in the Bay Area, not just in England, but everywhere in between, as you are doing your part to make that list of the authors that you want to be able to have your students connect with, because again, we're talking about connection. You can head on over to Christine's official website, which again is pinwheelsandstories.com. You can connect with her to schedule your author school visit for the 2024-2025 school year. One of the biggest themes of books that have come into contact with me over the years, for 10 years, almost since day one, is books on death and grief and loss. And this is a subject that's very near and dear to me, because I'm not sure if I had the chance to let you know this, but one of the main reasons why I moved out to San Diego 4 years ago, shortly after my grandmother transitioned over 10 years ago. Shortly thereafter, I began having visions of opening up a children's hospice for terminally ill children in San Diego. And when that does open, you're darn tootin' that Dear Mr. G is actually going to be in the library there. Also having my first children's book come out in the spring, and it's also themed with death and grief and loss. So it takes a very brave soul to have a book about death and grief and loss. And one of the things that I really love about your book as well, too, among many, is the fact that it's a conversation starter. The story is not a death, grief, and loss book, but it's gently weaved in because you're able to have clarity that Mr. G, we're not spoiling anything here in any way, shape, or form, but Mr. G is old, and eventually you do have a point where you transition and where you pass. And you could have easily just had a book that had this exchange and not mention death and grief and loss. Obviously, through your lens as a mother, through your lens as a children's author, why do you feel that it's vital to be able to have those difficult conversations? Because, you know, as Mr. Rogers said for many years on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and when he traveled across the country for different talks and commencement speeches, he used the phrase, anything that is mentionable is manageable, and anything that is manageable is mentionable. So could you talk to us about really why it's vital for parents especially, or caregivers of children, to be able to move maybe past the fear that they may have of having that conversation and bridging that, and how children's books especially help to be able to make that a little bit more of an easier conversation?
Yeah, I think kids have an awareness of death at quite a young age. My youngest for sure was talking about it like before I expected. Like I don't know where she'd even picked it up from, but at 2, 3, she was talking about it like she knew about it, but it was a scary thing. Like she didn't understand it. And I hope that by writing about it, we can kind of, or by writing a book, I'm giving a parent or a caregiver the tool to be able to sit down with a child and kind of talk about it. Again, about a spoiler, I don't think it's a spoiler to say that I don't put it on the page with my words as such. I leave it in a way that means that caregivers can have that conversation in a way that makes sense for them and their family. I worked with a child psychologist, like she read the story, to kind of make sure that I was hitting the right notes and it was going to be the tool I hoped for it to be. And I worked very hard with my editors as well to make sure that we were hitting the right notes for that. So it leaves the ending in a way that means that they can have that conversation about what the ending actually means and what it means to them and their family, and how you can remember people and what that means. I use the metaphor of a rose, roses throughout the book. And so the idea that roses, they come back every year, like your roses will bloom again. And when there aren't any roses on the plant, that there's, I'm trying to remember how I word it in the book about scrolling through it quickly, but like the idea that you can't see them, but they're still there is kind of the theme that I have with the roses. So I hope that you can kind of use that idea, parents can use that idea to talk to their kids. And the roses came from because of my neighbours having roses, but also my my mother-in-law loved roses and her father loved roses. So again, all these little snippets of my life that kind of found their way onto the page, not entirely intentionally, like subconsciously made it way onto the page. So yeah, my hope for Mr. G is, yes, it's about friendship. There's some touching, funny moments, but there's also at the heart of it is about loss, as well as friendship and intergenerational wisdom. So many themes that I didn't set out to write at all until it happened.
And it's really interesting. And thank you for sharing that. When we take the time to live life to the fullest, how many times have you had people come into your life and say, take the time and smell the roses? And you're wondering, you know, how often do we do that? I was actually, from when we're recording this episode, I was actually at the florist yesterday. And I actually I actually smelled a flower. It wasn't a rose. It was a yellow orange flower. So I did smell a flower, but I took the time. And especially, again, you being a parent, you understand, you're in the world of children's literature just like I am. It's a very exciting world, but it's also very fast paced as well, too. So being able to carve out the time, like, little Forrest always reminds you, like, if he sees me, like, not literally chained to my desk, but if he says, hey, John, you know what? Come on, Dad, let's go. Like, we got to go outside. We got to go for a walk. We got to go to the park. Let's go play ball. Right. And this is also why it helps to have kids, or it helps to have a dog who's, just a few days shy of turning 2 in the process. We also talk about connection as well, too, and the experience of going to ALA. There's something about San Diego. There's something about this beautiful city that I'm very blessed and fortunate to have been in for 4 years. You've had the chance to meet thousands of children in person and online. You've traveled. What was it about that experience that really stood out for you? Because again, ALA really is, with all due respect to some of the other events in the world of children's literature, it's kind of like the Super Bowl for children's literature, right? That you just get everyone that's just beamed in from all across the country, and even many respects around the world, and they converge in one specific city for a couple of days. And it happened to be San Diego. So what was the experience like for you in San Diego? How did that really stand out amongst any of the other experiences that you've had in your years as an author?
I think it was community, like being with, you knew that every single person there was kind of connected to the world of children's literature, or literature in general, not just children's, but the world of of books. And I always say that book people are the best people, and I truly believe that. Like, and particularly children's book people. It's like we're just all there for the same reason, like to share our love of books. As an author, I got to meet so many librarians, teachers as well, other authors and illustrators, and just having that time to enjoy and make connections was just so special. I mean, and in San Diego is one of my favorite places. It was my 3rd time in San Diego, so I was very happy to be back there too.
That's wonderful. Well, I hope that there's a 4th and a 5th and onward for your family. And by the way, that's either a bumper sticker, a t-shirt, and or a hashtag of book people are the best people. We always that's just our PR brain that keeps going here at PR from the Heart in the Children's Book Spotlight series. 2025 is going to be a very big year for you because, again, we're always about being in the moment and living life to the fullest, while also from a healthy perspective, planning ahead. And 2025 is going to be a beautiful year for you because in the summer, if I'm not mistaken, you have your newest post Dear Mr. G project coming out. So we always love, when you go to the movies, the actual movie theater, we're not talking about like, watching things from the comforts of you got to go to a movie theater, because then when you watch the coming attractions, it really hits that much harder and you get that much more excited. So could you share this a little sneak peek of what you have coming in 2025, in the summer of 2025?
Yeah, I'm super excited. We're working on a new chapter book series. It's an early chapter book series, like ages like 5 to 8. With my dear friend Laura Zarin, who is an illustrator, and we're getting to work on this together. So she's local to me in the Bay Area. We have the same agent, and that's been published by Astra and Kane Press, and it's called Magic Makers Club. So it's about 3 girls who start a business to make potions and spells to help people solve all their problems. From gardening to lost pets to house cleaning, like all those chores that we don't want to do. The Magic Makers Club are going to come along and solve all the problems and have lots of fun while doing it. It's about entrepreneur skills for kids, so we have extensive back matter about how to start their own business. So yeah, I've just finished. Book 1 is pretty much done from my point of view. I just did the proofreading read through. Book 2 is in revision. So it's a very exciting process to be doing a chapter book series again.
And it's interesting, when I learned about the title of this series, again, like this is even just like when I first connected with Dear Mr. G, I'm like, this is a book that must be read. This is a series that must be read. But again, that will come in its own perfect time. one of the things about life, when you live life to the fullest, you realize and you remember that every day we learn. In many respects, Earth is a school. Now, sometimes people think, okay, well, once you're done with 8th grade and once you're done with high school, and once you're done with college, and then if you do some grad school and some doctorate, and then you're done. And it's like, no, we learn each and every day. And in many respects, again, Earth and life are a school, and we have classes every day, and relationships are our biggest and best assignments, as the expression goes. I'm curious to learn what Dear Mr. G, the process of creating the book, writing it, editing it, having it published, now sharing it with the world. What has Dear Mr. G taught you about yourself and taught you about life?
Oh gosh, what's Dear Mr. G? That's a tough one. I think Dear Mr. G did teach me about myself and about life. I think just, well, you've been saying it the whole episode is about living life to the fullest, like making the most of those small moments. Yeah, it definitely is a good lesson for me and for readers. I think it taught me a lot about writing as well. Like that's every single book I write makes me a stronger writer, including all the ones that are in my Google Drive that will never be published. Like every single one, it brings me to a different place in my career and helps me become a stronger writer. So I definitely, that was something I took from the book too. Um, I was at an author event last night, and the author of a middle grade book, she was talking about kind of how she was talking about her characters in a way that made them seem so real, like she really knew them. And I think that's a wonderful part of writing a book, is you get to feel like Mr. G and Jackson, I feel like they were real people to me in the course of writing this book. And I hope they feel real to people when they read them too, that they feel like complete people. They have, particularly Jackson, like he makes a mistake very early on in the book, and then he kind of deals with it. He doesn't run away from his mistake. And later on, he feels like he's made another mistake, which I won't spoil. But, you know, those kind of things I think are really important too, like owning your mistakes, learning from them, and then carrying
Because
on.
again, this circles back beautifully to the fact how we learn every day.
Mhm.
If we imagine if we knew everything when we came out of the womb, so to speak, right? Then it's like it would defeat the purpose of living. And because life is an experience and we learn each and every day. And again, as long as we remain grateful and appreciative and humble, then life can be enjoyable and it can be wonderful. It can be memorable in so many ways, even amidst the contrast and the polarity and so on and so forth. The two ways that we always close out every children's book spotlight series episode, we mention his name once or twice or thrice. We're huge Mr. Rogers fans here at the Children's Book Spotlight series. Of course, the longtime host of the beloved children's television program, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, that aired for many decades on PBS. And in many respects, and he did this through his time on The Neighborhood, when he traveled across the country, talks, commencement speeches, most notably when he received his Lifetime Achievement Award at the Daytime Emmy shortly before he passed from stomach cancer. And he always kept the time, Christine, whether it be 15 seconds, 30 seconds, or a full minute. He encouraged us to remember those who helped love us into being. And that was his way of saying, remember those who helped us remember to live life to the fullest, who helped us to remember that life is worth living, the beautiful friendships that come into our lives. Who are some of the people, I know that you had mentioned your kids a couple of times as well. Who are some of the people that you would like to publicly recognize here on episode number 221 of the Children's Book Spotlight series that have helped love you, Christine Evans, into being?
Gosh, well, I mentioned as in the course of writing this book how I used to get my own grandparents while writing the book, like, and that all came into the story without even me realizing it. So for sure, from an early age, my grandparents, and of course my own parents too, my brother, like without my sibling relationships, sibling connections definitely make a foundation of your life. I've mentioned my own children, and of course my husband, like who's been a massive part of my life. We moved out to California and started this new life together, and so yeah, these are all such important connections. And then all the writing community is a really super important part of it too.
And it's always been said that, and I'm going to paraphrase Fred's words, you know, whether those people are near or far, whether they are still with us walking this earthly plane or shining down from heaven, they are smiling down on you, knowing the fact that you are making an indelible impact on the lives of not only your family, but children, parents, families, educators all around the world. And as we like to say, those who love great children's books as well, too. In addition to being huge Mr. Rogers neighborhood buffs here at the Children's Book Spotlight Series, we're also huge Disney buffs. And there's something about the Disney magic, right? And we always can connect to the fact that we can bring to form and shape our dreams, our desires, our goals, our ambitions. We can fulfill our own wishes. And we have the ability to bring to form and shape, to help to bring to form and shape the dreams, the desires, the goals, the ambitions. We can help others fulfill their wishes too, whether it be family members, friends, colleagues, clients, random passersby, fellow neighbors on our path. We go back to the year 1992. It was a great year. I was 11 years old. We remember the late Robin Williams, who voiced the genie of the lamp in Disney's animated classic, Aladdin. And it's been with us since day one of the Children's Book Spotlight series, and no better way to bring out the genie lamp as we are celebrating the kickoff of the 6-year anniversary celebration of the Children's Book Spotlight series. So we have a little segment, Christine, called 3 Wishes. So you are being given 3 wishes today. Many people who come aboard the program, they say, let me get this straight. I thought I was going to be interviewed talking about my story, my children's book, and all of a sudden, bing, bang, boom, I'm getting 3 wishes. Where is this coming from? So you've given freely from your heart to not only your own family, but again, to children, parents, families, educators around the world, and those who love great children's books. So this is your time to receive. So these wishes, they can be for yourself, they can be for your family, they can be for the children of the world. I believe the only automatic disqualifier is you can't make someone fall in love with you. You can't force that. It's got to happen organically, right? But obviously you have the sir in the equation, so we were all set on that. And then you can't ask for more wishes. Anything else besides that is pretty much fair game. So what would your 3 wishes be?
Well, I've had plenty of time to think about that because I have my series that is the Wish Library. So I've been asked this question more than once. So I have a bit of a head start maybe on some of your other guests. So one that I tend to only say 1 wish, but I'll try and think of 3. I've always said a teleport device. I would wish for a teleport device because
Cool.
of my family being 6,000 miles away, and it'd been a really long flight from California back to the UK. So a teleport device has always been my number 1 wish for myself and my family. I mean, an obvious wish would be for a peaceful life for all children all around the world. Like that would be a wonderful thing to be true. For children to be able to live in peace and to be able to learn in peace. And then my last wish would be for everybody is to have, I wish for everyone to have a never-ending pile of books to enjoy.
I thought that you were going to mention like a never-ending bowl of ice cream. I thought, well, when you said that, I'm like, if there would be a 4th wish, I think that could possibly be it as well too. But everything in moderation. I don't think there's no such thing as too many books. There is such a thing as too much ice cream, even if it's mixed with oat milk or rice milk. If it's not the regular ice cream that we
Still ice cream
that we know and remember and we love. One of the fastest growing recommendations in the world of children's literature. It's kind of akin in a little bit of a different way. If you remember in the 80s and 90s when we grew up, and when a movie came out, the beloved movie critic duo Siskel and Ebert, when they loved the movie, they gave it 2 thumbs up. Well, little Forrest, who is snoozing, he's having sweet dreams because we're sharing him. We're enjoying Dear Mr. G. One of the fastest growing recommendations in the world of children's literature is when little Forrest proudly gives 2 paws up for a children's book that we're featuring on the Children's Book Spotlight series. I've had the chance to read Dear Mr. G with little Forrest. He loves it, absolutely adores it, and so he proudly gives 2 paws up for Dear Mr. G, which again, it is currently now available for all of you, our listeners and viewers, our fellow friends and neighbors, and our fellow shining stars as well, too. You can head on over to Christine's official website, which once again is pinwheelsandstories.com. You can also head on over to Amazon.com if that is your preferred online vehicle of your choosing. You can purchase and enjoy your copy of Dear Mr. G. It is now available courtesy of our friends and neighbors at Union Square Kids. Again, one of the many ways you can pledge your support for Christine is by purchasing and enjoying your copy of Dear Mr. G and leaving a 5-star review on Amazon that lets her know that she's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and for those who love great children's books. Of course, if you head on over to your favorite local library, your favorite children's or independent bookstores, we like to say here on the program, they are the pillars of our community, and they do not stock their copies of Dear Mr. G. No reason to yell or moan. Make that kind recommendation, little tip of the cap. You can say, "Aw, why don't you have your copies of Dear Mr. G?" You can do that, but then you just give the little tip of the cap and say, "I have a kind suggestion. I heard about Dear Mr. G on the 6-year anniversary celebration of the children's book Spotlight series." That's also one of the many ways you can help Christine as well, too, to continue to get this book out into libraries, into bookstores across the country and around the world. And all educators, teachers, principals, librarians, superintendents, as you are making your roadmap for your students for the 2024-2025 school year, as kids are now fully back in session. Hard to believe it's the back to school season, but the school year is just beginning. So you can connect with Christine's official website, connect with her directly. Again, pinwheelsandstories.com, where you can schedule your very own author school visit with Christine as part of the 2024-2025 school year. When we hear the trolley, that means that it is time to go. But fear not, there are many more magical trolley stops to come here on the Children's Book Spotlight series as we continue our 6-year anniversary celebration. And then sooner than we realize, it is going to be the holiday season and the start of 2025. But remember, John, live life to the fullest. Be in the now, as the expression goes. So again, if you are a children's author or if you are a middle grade author and would love to share your inspiring story and the release of your brand new book on a forthcoming edition of the Children's Book Spotlight series, just like Christine did here on this particular trolley stop, that is episode number 221, you can head on over to our official website, prfromtheheart.com, or connect with us via any of our social media platforms that you now see on screen. Instagram, Facebook, X, all at PR from the Heart. We are super excited as well to be able to reconnect, as we always do each and every month. You remember him and you love him as the beloved Mr. McFeely on the popular long-running children's television program, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. We know him and we love him as David Newell. David and I, we take the time each and every month as a little tip of the cap to his character, Mr. McFeely. We are proud to co-host one of the most popular children's book review programs for parents, for educators, and for librarians. That is the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. David is now situated in his new residence. He actually moved for the first time in 30 years. You know what it's like if you live in a place for 30 years? It takes some time to get your bearings back under you. So we are super excited to reconnect back with David and have brand new installments this fall into the holiday season and beyond of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. So if you are a children's author and would love for David and I to be able to deliver a heartfelt review of your brand new children's book and to spotlight it, feature it, review it on a forthcoming edition of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, that is the sister program of the Children's Book Spotlight series, you can head on over to our official website, prfromtheheart.com, or connect with us via any of our social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, and X. Children's Book Spotlight series. Again, we're celebrating our 6-year anniversary. Hard to believe, the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. We're going to be approaching our 4-year anniversary right after the holiday season. And for all children's and middle grade authors, as we head into the holiday season and you are making your plans for 2025, and if you say, wait a minute, I need some support. It's always good to have support, especially if you are sharing your work, moving forth in your life's purpose. We have been so proud, privileged, honored, and blessed to be able to represent some of the top names in the world of children's literature. Catherine Roy, John Parra, Sharon Lois and Bram, Skinnamarink-a-dinky-ding, Skinnamarink-a-doo, we love you, ranging from those authors, the top in the world of children's literature, to those whose journeys are taking flight. If you are a children's author, if you are a middle grade author and are looking for dedicated PR publicity support for the release of your new children's or middle grade book, if you would like to be able to facilitate your own book media tour or a national book media tour, connect with us via our official website, prfromtheheart.com. Schedule your courtesy connection call. Let us see how we can be of service to you. One final time, again, we thoroughly enjoy Dear Mr. G. No matter where you were at on your path, there is a message or messages in this book For you, head on over to Christine's official website. Again, pinwheelsandstories.com. You can also head on over to amazon.com. Be sure to leave that 5-star review. Head on over to your favorite local library, your favorite children's or independent bookstore. Make that kind recommendation that they stock Dear Mr. G if they do not. And again, for all educators across the country and around the world, pinwheelsandstories.com. Bookmark that website. Connect with Christine to schedule your author's school visit for the 2024-2025 school year. But again, as we hear the trolley, that means that it is time to go. Raise your hand if you have had fun on episode number 221 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series. Christine has her hands up. I have my hands up. Little Forrest has his paws up. Maybe he's just kind of like levitating when he's sleeping, but his paws are up, and we see hands from the little ones on screen. So as we like to say, that means mission accomplished, job well done. If this message, these messages that we have shared, the story that is Dear Mr. G, the anthem of living your life to the fullest, if these messages have resonated with you, if they've lifted your spirits, if you say, you know what, I am so empowered right now that I want to share this message of living your life to the fullest to everyone that I know, and even to those neighbors who are just coming into my life right now. You can head on over to our official YouTube channel, which hopefully you're watching the program here, either on our official YouTube channel or the prfromtheheart.com website. Subscribe to our official YouTube channel. Join the PR from the Heart family as we are approaching our countdown to 20,000 subscribers through our official YouTube channel in the process. And again, share this very special trolley stop that you have proudly enjoyed. That is episode number 221 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series. We want to thank all of you for your continued support of PR from the Heart, for your continued support of the Children's Book Spotlight Series for 6 years. It is not lost on us in any way, shape, or form when we can help some of the shining stars in the world of children's literature share their inspiring stories in the release of their brand new children's books and middle grade books as well, too. For your continued support of not only PR from the Heart and the Children's Book Spotlight Series, but for children's authors and illustrators, middle grade authors as well, too, such as Christine, who are doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and for those who love great children's books. For local libraries and children's and independent bookstores, pillars of our community. Above all else, we want to thank you for helping us to walk home the children of the world. One final time, we give a little tip of the cap to our favorite neighbor, Mr. Rogers. We always feel his presence and his spirit, especially when we celebrate, just as we are here on the kickoff of the 6-year anniversary celebration of the Children's Book Spotlight Series. Did you know that Mr. Rogers weighed 143 pounds for his entire natural adult life? You might be wondering, why in the heck am I mentioning this? Well, there's 1 letter in I, 4 letters in love, 3 letters in you. And that was in his own personal numerology of sorts, his own private numerology. That was his way of helping us to remember our inherent worth, our divine value, and that we're loved and we're special just the way that we are. That we can live life to the fullest, that we are worthy of that. And as little Forrest was kind enough to join us, as Christine was kind enough to join us, and as a little tip of the cap to Mr. Rogers, our favorite neighbor, we share our favorite 3 numbers as we close out the program of 243, because there's 2 letters in we, 4 letters in love, 3 letters in you. That is our reminder for you to live life to the fullest, to be able to take the time and smell the roses, to remember that you are as beautiful as that rose that you smell. That we like you and we love you just the way that you are perfect, whole, healthy, complete, just the way that you are. And that's a good feeling in many respects. So again, for Little Forrest, for Christine Evans, for myself, John Masiulionis, thank you for spending some time with us here in our neighborhood as we have officially now kicked off the 6-year anniversary celebration of the Children's Book Spotlight Series. And that is such a good feeling. Thank you once again for helping us to walk home the children of the world, our fellow friends, our fellow neighbors, and our fellow shining stars. Goodbye for now.